الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So we pick up in the book of Kitab al-Salah. This is the book in Zad al-Mustaqni' under the fasal of Jam'ah, of combining between Salatain, between two prayers other than in Safar. We already talked about the Qasr of Safar, right? Here, this is a very, very important bab, and I know a lot of chapters we say this is an important bab, but why? Because a lot of confusion around this. And a lot of people do not understand the ahkam related to combining the prayers. So then what happens in a lot of masajid, when we go, we hear people fighting about this issue, getting angry about this issue, telling somebody this is not sunnah, this is not there, because of the lack of knowledge. But if people were to seek knowledge, then all these arguments and fights would end. If you had ittiba', obedience to the Quran and Sunnah, and knew the fiqh and the adillah, the evidences, then there's no fight, you just show the evidences. And that's why today I'm going to go over a little bit of more in-depth on the adillah, on some of the evidences, just so you can keep it as a reference. And this is why we record these durus, not because we're trying to gain viewers and all that, because the durus don't get that many views as it is, but it is for the evidences that you can come back to and watch the lesson and benefit from. Alhamdulillah. فبدأ المؤلف هذا الفصل, يعني the muallif begins this chapter within Kitab al-Salah, within Zad al-Mustaqni', يجوز جمع بين ظهرين وبين العشاءين في وقت أحدهما في سفر القصر. Here the muallif begins by saying it is yajuz, it is permissible. Now the wording used by the author is very important to understand. This is why some people tell us, oh, is there an English translation of this book? Is there this been translated into my language? Can I just go buy the book? You can go buy it, but you're not going to understand it. Because the terminologies used and how it's used and the order they're put on, they all have an effect. These are mutun, these are small condensed texts where the ulama would concise the wording with a lot of benefit. That's why Shaykh ibn Uthman said if you take the explicit masail, there's 3,000 plus in the book Zad al-Mustaqni, the small book, and 6,000 if you take the istidlalan. So here the first thing people don't understand, that he didn't say was sunnah or fard or wajib, ويقول يجوز. What does that mean? It's permissible. We are not saying that in these conditions you must. It's not fard, it's not wajib. We don't even say that it's mustahab. This is a permissibility. You can use it or not use it. Right? Now, of course, when Allah gives you a ruskha, a leniency, it's best to utilize it, because Allah gives it to you. But this is important to understand. Yajuz jam'ah. It is permissible to combine between the two dhuhrain, and the two isha'ain. What is dhuhrain? We only have one dhuhr per day. We only have one isha. And this is a style in the Arabic language where the sifa of one is given to the other. So dhuhrain is dhuhr and asr, and the isha'ain are maghrib and isha. These are put together. Like Aisha radiyallahu anha in the hadith when she mentions about the two black things, water and dates. Well, water is not black, but the sifa of the date, see, that's what we used to survive off of. Aswadain, the two black things, dates and water, that's all they had. They didn't have, for months, they wouldn't have food, and as far as like having meat or rice or chicken or anything like this. They would just survive off water and dates. This is the zuhud that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived under. So here the muallif says that it's permissible to combine between the two dhuhr and the two isha in the time of either one of them. Yani you can pray dhuhr asr together in the time of dhuhr or asr, or maghrib isha together in the time of maghrib or isha. And now we'll go over some of the reasons. Now, if you're taking notes, take this note. If you're not taking notes, remember this and come back to the video and take notes, inshallah, at home. There is going to be two conditions that allow you to combine both Dhuhr, Asr and Maghrib, Isha. And then there are going to be 3 conditions, halat, that are going to allow you to combine the Isha'ain, the 2 Isha, Maghrib and Isha, but not Dhuhr and Asr. Tayyib? And these are some of the goals for you to take from this chapter. 1, to understand in what conditions it is permissible to combine. Al-awwal, halat, jawaz al-jam'a. Second, al-farq بين الحالات الجمع الظهرين والعشاءين. The difference between the conditions that allow you to combine Dhuhr, Asr and Maghrib, Isha, or just Maghrib, Isha. There is no condition that forbids you from combining Maghrib and Isha but allows you Dhuhr and Asr, unless that condition is no longer there at that time. Right? And then to understand what is afdal, what is better, taqdeem or ta'khir, to pray it early or later. Yani early meaning Dhuhr, Asr in the time of Dhuhr, or later meaning Dhuhr, Asr in the time of Asr. Maghrib, Isha in the time of Maghrib, or Maghrib, Isha in the time of Isha. Wal farq بين الشروط هما. And the difference, this is the 4th thing you should get, between the conditions that allow you to combine early and those that allow you to combine later. وشروط جمعة, and the last, the 5th, is the shurut of jam'a mutlaqan. Yani for any one of them, what are the conditions that you must have? These are your 5 goals from this chapter. Tayyib. Before I even get into this, which salah can you combine with Jum'ah? None. Good job, mashallah. You cannot, even if you're a traveler, even if it's raining, even if you're sick, Jum'ah is not combined with any salah. And you may ask, what is your dalil? Actually, it should be flipped. We don't have to provide dalil that you cannot, you have to provide dalil you can. Because what is the asal? What did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? He prayed Jum'ah at his time. We have no hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam combining any salah with Jum'ah. We have a hadith for combining Dhuhr, Asr. Shaykh Muqbil wrote a whole risala. It's a very beautiful little booklet compiling many ahadith sahihah, authentic ahadith that showed that Rasulullah combined salawat while traveling and in rain and all of that. So we have those ahadith. Like Dhuhr, Asr we have hadith. Asr, Maghrib, Asr, Dhuhr in the time of Asr we have hadith. Maghrib, Isha in the time of Maghrib we have hadith. Maghrib and Isha in the time of Isha we have hadith. Fajr never gets combined. Jum'ah never gets combined. If you're a traveler and you pray Jum'ah, you have to pray Asr at its time. If you're in a traveling situation, you have to combine, then don't pray Jum'ah. If you have the ability to go and listen to the khutbah and pray Jum'ah, then khalas, then you will pray Asr at its time. As a traveler, Jum'ah is not fard on you. Right? If the rain is such that you cannot go for salah because of the rain, then how are you going for Jum'ah and sitting for the khutbah and all? No. Then you combine without Jum'ah. If you pray Jum'ah, you do not, and we see this sometimes here, it's raining or something, brothers pray Jum'ah, and then some brothers get up to go make Asr. What is the dalil for this? Even if some Shaykh Fulan said, we don't care if Shaykh Fulan said, where is the adillah, the evidence? Tayyib. Now, what does the muallif begin with? This is the first shart, or the first hal, sorry, not shart, hal. This is the first condition under which you can combine Dhuhr and Asr in either one's time, and Maghrib and Isha in either one's time. Remember I told you there's only 2. And this is going to be the first, which is a safar, which is when you are traveling. And this is the travel that allows you to have qasr. What does qasr mean? Shorten. What are all the different states that allow you to shorten? Just one. Safar, travel. Sickness, rain, anything else does not allow you to shorten, even if it allows you to combine. So which traveling, let's say I'm going to go visit a brother 15 minutes away, am I going to combine salawat? La. It has to be the traveling that allows qasr. That's what the muallif says. يعني في سفر قصر in the travel that allows you to do qasr. And we discussed that in great detail in the last dars. If you missed it, watch the video. Tayyib. Here there is some madahib there is some khilaf of madahib. But I want to mention these because sometimes when you're traveling and you're combining, some people will argue with you and so on. The Jamhur al-Ulama, without a doubt, the vast majority of ulama, they agreed you can combine while traveling. And I will give you references to the madahib because it's not like a lot of durus, somebody says Hanafi, says Shafi, but they don't give you references. They don't actually go look it up. They'll get a book like Fiqh al-Sunnah or Aqwal al-Ulama or something. And no, you have to go to the books of the madhab itself. If you're going to speak about the Malikiyah, then you have to go to the books of the Malikiyah. If you're going to speak about the Hanafiyah, you have to go to the books of the Hanafiyah, or the Shawafi'ah, or the Hanabila, or the Zahiriyah, or so on. You can't just take a general book and reference the opinion of a madhab. And that's why we study even which books of which madhab are relied upon. I'm not saying for you guys to worry about this, but the teachers who teach, they should do this research. That's why it takes me a lot of time to prepare durus, because we have to do all this research. So one of the books that we see the standard to understand is the Hashiyah of the Suqi and the Sharh of Mukhtasar al-Khalil for the Malikiyah. And I looked to the works of Ibn Abdul Barr, including Al-Tamheed and Tazkar and others. And going through all of their standard books, you will find the Malikiyah allowed combining the salawat in safar. This is also the opinion of the Shawafi', as you can find in the works of Ibn Hajar al-Haythami, not to be confused with al-Asqalani, and in the works of al-Nawawi like al-Majmu' with Sharh al-Muhaddab, which is 34 volumes of amazing research. It allows it as well. In the Hanabila, already we're studying Zad, and also in al-Iqna', al-Insaf, and Sharh al-Muntaha, you will find this jawaz as well, and al-Gha'aya and the Mu'tamid Kutub of the Madhab. The exception to the rule here is the Hanafi madhab, as Ibn Abidin in his famous Hashiyah, which is one of the relied upon books of the Hanafi madhab, he says that Jam'a bayna salatayn is only in the time of Hajj faqat. And we'll talk about where in Hajj we make Jam'a bayna salatayn. So in the Hanafi madhab you can, but only in Hajj. In the other madhab, as a traveler, you can. In Al-Mughni, Ibn Qudama, he mentioned that this is the madhab of Fuqaha al-Sab'a. And here I've mentioned the Fuqaha Sab'a, the 7 famous Fuqaha, and they were famous before the famous 4 madhab. Like today, when you talk about ulama, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, Ahmad, may Allah be pleased with all 4 of those great scholars, people usually know these names. When you mention al-Fuqaha Sab'a, unless you're a student of knowledge, usually you don't know. But these were great ulama. And when they all come together on an opinion, this is before these 4 madahib. So understand there is a very important, there is a strong weight that we should assign to such an opinion. And of course based on the ahadith, not on their opinion. And Ibn Qudama says that at that time, in that time period, we don't know any khilaf between the ulama on this issue, in that generation. So there is ijma'. Ibn Qudama and Al-Mughni said there was consensus. Even if later some ulama split away from it, but once ijma' is established in a generation, it is a hujjah, it is a proof. Who are the Fuqaha Sabha? I'm just going to mention their names. Sa'id ibn Musayyib, famous. Urwa ibn Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Urwa, the son of Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Who is Zubayr ibn al-Awwam? The great Sahabi, one of the 10 given the glad tidings of Jannah. Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Qasim, the son of Muhammad, who is the son of who? The Khalifa, Siddiq, Abu Bakr Siddiq. Kharija ibn Zayd ibn Thabit. Kharija, the son of Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit, the great Sahabi, who was the compiler of the Quran. Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Ubaydullah, the son of the great Sahabi Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Sulaiman ibn Yasar, Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman. These are the famous 7 fuqaha. Some of them are even amongst the Sahaba. They saw Rasulullah SAW as children. And these were famous as the fuqaha sab'a, and they came to an agreement that you can make qasr with Rasulullah SAW's ahadith, with evidences in safar. there are many ahadith, and as I said, Shaykh Muqbil wrote a whole book on this issue, Risala. But we'll mention the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, and this is muttafaqun alayhi, and he mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim, where he mentions كان النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام يجمع بين المغرب والعشاء. He used to combine between Maghrib and Isha in regards to travel. There is other ahadith where Anas ibn Malik and others, they mention that Rasulullah combined Dhuhr and Asr as well due to travel. All four states, meaning combining Dhuhr Asr in the time of Dhuhr, combining Dhuhr Asr in the time of Asr, combining Maghrib Isha in the time of Maghrib, and combining Maghrib Isha in the time of Isha, have been mentioned in marfu' hadith, in hadith established from the Prophet ﷺ having to do with travel. Okay? So that is the first situation. In this you will make qasr and jam'. You will shorten, meaning you will make dhuhr 2, asr 2, maghrib 3, isha 2, fajr is always 2. Okay? And you will make jam', and you will combine. Okay? In either one of the times. The next hal, the next situation or condition that allows you to combine but not qasr. In this, from now on, everything we mentioned will not allow you to shorten. Shortening is only for the traveler. Is marud. يعني إذا كان المريض, if the person is sick, due to a sickness, as the muallif mentions, mushaqqa, that brings a hardship. Not like, oh, I got a headache, I'm going to combine salawat. No. Unless it's like a crazy migraine or something. You can't just be like, achoo, oh, combining. You don't trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if your sickness is such that you can still pray on its time without severe difficulty, then you should. But if your sickness is such, and we'll give some examples, inshallah, where it's a person, like for example myself, I'll give you an example from my own life. In 1996, I had visited India, and I got the gift of jaundice. So I was sick. It wasn't hepatitis C or anything, alhamdulillah, I'm not going to die from it. But my eyes were yellow and I'd become very weak. I could not get up and go to the bathroom to make wudu. And I was so sick, even though I was 18 at the time and physically I was, alhamdulillah, stronger than I am today. But I couldn't. I used to have to make tayammum, and it was very difficult for me to even get up and stand to make salah. So I used to, at that time, because I didn't have the knowledge, I used to still, through a lot of pain and difficulty, try to get up for Eid salah, and sometimes I needed help. I wish I knew the fiqh at that time. I wish the brothers I was with had taught this fiqh. It would have made life easier. Knowledge makes your life easy. But at that time, in that type of a sickness, yes, you can combine between Dhuhr and Asr and Isha and Maghrib. And again, the adillah for this, there are many. For example, the qawl subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَا جَعْلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنَ الْحَرْجِ. And Allah subhanahu did not put upon you a hardship from the deen. And adillah, we have mawquf ahadith as well about women and so on asking this question from Sahaba about combining due to sickness and the jawaz being given. In a Rawd al-Murbi', al-Biyuti also adds to it situations like pregnancies. Not pregnancy when you're able to make your salah on time, but sometimes some pregnancies are difficult. Mushaqqa is there. Some sisters are bedridden during their pregnancy. Some, especially towards the later time, they're unable to move as much. So in that type of a pregnancy where you have a hardship, to combine salawat, not to shorten. To combine is permissible with mushaqqa, if there is a hardship, if there is a need. If there is no need, then no. Breastfeeding, some of the sisters, especially when they just had a baby and they still have their nifas, then there's no salah during nifas. But as they go through a lot of physical hardship during that time, when their nifas finishes and they're still breastfeeding and they're still recovering, if it's hard for them, they can combine between salawat when there is mushaqqa as a need. Istihada, when there is irregular bleeding, that's not hayd. In hayd you don't have salah, but if you have irregular bleeding to make ghusl or wudu every time, and you have a physical hardship, you can combine between salawat when there is needed. But if there is no mushaqqa, if there is no hardship, then you do not combine during those times. طيب. So the two halat that allow you to combine Dhuhr Asr or Maghrib Isha is, we've covered those, right? You got those, everybody? Good. وبين العشاءين, and between the Isha'ain, between the two Isha, يعني al-Maghrib wal-Isha, now we'll begin the three situations that allow you to combine Maghrib and Isha, but not Dhuhr and Asr. طيب. الأول لمطر, for rain. طيب. But the Muallif, he makes it clear that it is rain that will wet the clothes. يبل يعني الثياب. يبل الثياب, it will make your clothing wet. Okay? What does that mean? If you go out and there is mist, we have like fog and mist, or there's very light rain, a couple of drops here and there, you cannot combine between salawat. Okay? But if the rain is heavy, where if you walk, it will drench your clothes, then to combine the salawat is permissible. But which salawat? Maghrib and Isha, not Dhuhr and Asr. Tayyib. What is the evidence for this? Now there is some khilaf of madahib. In Hanafiya you cannot. Right? In the Shafi'i madhab, you can combine Dhuhr Asr and Maghrib Isha due to rain. The Malikiya and the Hanabila, they both allow, but only Maghrib and Isha. Tayyib. The first evidence we can provide is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma in al-Bukhari, when he mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam combined salawat without any pressing reason, and the reason for combining salawat, including safar, he gave was, one of them was matar, the rain. So what does that mean? This hadith in al-Bukhari, it's authentic, makes it clear that in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, rain was taken as a valid reason for combining salawat. This is the first dalil. I'm going to give you more, don't worry. There is also the hadith reported by Abu Salama ibn Abdul Rahman, who says, min as-sunnah, it is from the sunnah that if it is a day of rain, to combine between Maghrib and Isha. Now this hadith is first very explicit, very clear, and even though Abu Salama is not mentioning it from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but when a Sahabi says min as-sunnah, or a tabi'i even, then that means that the reference is given towards rafa', yani it is marfu'an, it means that it is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this hadith is a very strong evidence for the madhab of the Hanabila and the Malikiyah, but we always have to be fair. We cannot just be like, okay, if a hadith works with my madhab, then I'm going to not mention the weakness, and if it's against, no. Everything has, in the end you will have to answer to Allah. So even though this is quoted by the Hanabila and the Malikiyah, but I will point out that this hadith is da'if. One of the people that's mentioned here is Amr ibn Abi Salama, who reports it from Abu Salama, and he is da'if. Ibn Mahdi, he said about him, hadith of Wahiyya, they are very weak. And Nisa'i said, laysa biqawi, he is not strong in hadith, and so on. So we know that this chain is weak. Secondly, Abu Salama is not a Sahabi, this Abu Salama. So you have, even though he says min as-sunnah, but you have the missing link, which would be irsal. And so on. This evidence is weak. But alhamdulillah, in looking for the evidences, I went to one of the books that I love to consult, and I brought it with me just as a benefit for the students. This is Irwa al-Ghalil of Sheikh Albani. And it's not just about whether he graded it strong or weak, which he weakened it as well. But one of the benefits of this book, Irwa al-Ghalil, is he puts forth other evidences to show what else is on the subject. So here he mentions Rawa and Hashim ibn Arwa and Aba Arwa wa Sa'id al-Musayyib wa Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman ibn al-Harith وكثير منهما, and many others like this. كانوا يجمعون, they used to make jam'a بين المغرب والعشاء. They used to combine between Maghrib and Isha in the light where there was, in the nights where there was rain. And لا ينكروا ذلك. And nobody disagreed. All of the Sahaba or the Tabi'un that were present, nobody objected to this. And another riwayah where Musa ibn Uqba and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the famous Khalifa Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, that he used to yajma' bayn al-Maghrib wal-Isha. Now you'll notice Dhuhr and Asr are not mentioned here. Maghrib and Isha. And in the night where there was rain, and Sa'id ibn Musayyib and Urwa ibn Zubayr and Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman and others in that time used to pray with him, and nobody, including the Sahaba that were still alive and the Tabi'un, nobody objected to it. He said, وَإِسْنَادُهُمَا صَحِيح, that both of these asanid are sahih. And this supports the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas that is marfu', that is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is in Bukhari, that mentioned min ghayr khawf or matar, that not from khawf or matar. That means khawf and matar were reasons to combine. And these ahadith make it explicit. Ibn Qudama and Al-Bahauddin Al-Maqdisi and others have also mentioned rawayat from Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman radiyallahu anhum, that they combine, and none of the Sahaba that were there objected. So when we take all these evidences, then it is evident that this is something proven marfu'an from the Prophet ﷺ, meaning istidlalan from the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas and from many of these Sahaba and Tabi'un, and nobody objected to it, and the Fuqaha Sab'a all agreed to it, and nobody at that entire generation amongst the Sahaba or Tabi'un disagreed. Now there is a riwayah from Abdullah ibn Umar for Dhuhr and Asr, for rain, but there is weakness in that chain. So the only authentically established chain that are explicit is from Maghrib and Isha. And there is a illah, there is a reasoning, which is darkness. You cannot make qiyas on safar. You cannot say, because traveler you can make qasar and so on. So when you have strong rain, but it's daytime, the hardship is less. But when it's night and it's dark, even in our time, don't be like, we got street lights. No, the accidents at night in rain are more. Darkness adds an element. So when the evidence only shows Maghrib and Isha, and we see a reason that's additional in Maghrib Isha, meaning it's the dark prayers that we don't find for Dhuhr and Asr, that means it is permissible to combine due to rain only when Isha and Maghrib. Tayyib. The second reason given, wahal. Wahal is the strong mud, or mud that is harmful. Not if it just rains a little bit and muddy, like your clothes get muddy, but rather mud that you slip, cars, hydroplane, and get caught up in, and mud that is dangerous. So if there is a mudslide or a lot of rain that causes such mud that there is mushaqqa, there is a hardship through it, then this is the second reason. But because this is really based on deriving the evidence, a hadith about rain, then the shart for it only being for Maghrib and Isha is also there. Mud will be, or a lot of mud where it can be dangerous, will be a reason to combine Maghrib and Isha, but not Dhuhr and Asr. And Rih Shadida, and the strong wind, Barida, that is fierce and cold. Not just, it's a windy day, leaves are flying, khalas, I'm combining salawat. No. But if there is very strong wind, cold, fierce, harmful, you've seen some wind that will knock your cars over, or knock people over, or at least cause a lot of hardship for going and coming, such a situation is the third hal that will allow the combining of salawat. But which salawat? Maghrib and Isha. Because again, this is based on a qiyas or tashbih based on rain. So we can't allow this to be for Dhuhr Asr. So, two conditions that allow combining even between Dhuhr Asr and Maghrib Isha, what are they? Safar, Marad, sickness and travel. Tayyib. Three conditions that allow Maghrib Isha but not Dhuhr Asr: rain, extreme amounts of mud that are dangerous, and fierce cold wind. The muallif here mentions وَلَوْ صَلَّى فِي بَيْتِهِ أو في مسجد يعني so let's go one at a time. Even if somebody is praying at home, and this is something where there is khilaf even between the Hanabila and between the other madahib as well. The safer opinion is that this should be utilized for the masjid, because the harm is going and coming. Yeah? But the muallif here, Hajjawi, he allows even at home, and he gives his evidences not in al-Sharh, not in Zad al-Mustaqni, but in al-Iqna', which is also by the same author. And the shuruh, the explanations, where they explain, they said, well, if the evidence is there that you can combine, and there is nothing forbidding for somebody at home to combine, then for women and people who are at home, then that rukhsah should be there. So for them to combine is also permissible. But other a'imma and ulama, they responded to this saying that the harj, the harm, or the mushaqqa, the hardship, is in the going to the masjid and coming, not at home. Even if it's raining out, if you're praying at home, what's the difference? So I would say the safer opinion is that at home you don't combine. It's easy to pray. But if somebody does, we cannot say something wrong because we don't have any adillah against it. And then he continues that even if the masjid has a covered path, meaning if you live close to a masjid and there's a covered path, you can still combine in the masjid. Why? Because the adillah, the evidences are still there. Okay? Now, continuing regarding the next issue, which is ما هو أفضل, what is better, تقديم والتأخير. The muallif says الأفضل فعل أرفق, يعني به من التقديم والتأخير. What is better to do in the earlier time or the later time? He says whatever is easier or more convenient for the person. Because it's proven that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam combined Dhuhr Asr in the time of Dhuhr and in the time of Asr, in the time of Maghrib and Isha, in the time of Maghrib and in the time of Isha. So if you're going to travel, as the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you plan on setting out early, the time of Dhuhr is in, you can pray Dhuhr Asr together and then begin your travel. But if you are going to reach there and you want to leave early, you want to travel early, and you're going to reach there in the time of Asr, then you can ta'khir, you can combine Dhuhr Asr and the time of Asr when you reach your destination. Both are permissible, and neither one is better or worse. It's going to depend on whatever is more convenient for you. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you a leniency, it is to make life easier for you. So either one can be done. The same is true for Maghrib and Isha. Now, the exception to the rule here is the combining at Arafah and Muzdalifah. In Arafah, what is afdal? Taqdeem. Yani to pray Dhuhr Asr in the time of Dhuhr. Yani taqdeem. And Muzdalifah at Ta'khir. To pray Maghrib Isha in the time of Isha. Why? Because there are clear adillah and evidences that mention this for these two times. So regularly you have the choice. There's no fadila, whatever is more convenient. But in Arafah, ma huwa al-afdal taqdeem. And in Muzdalifah, what's better? Ta'khir. And this is something that all of the madahib agree that in these situations you can combine, including the Hanafiya. In the Hanafi madhab also you can combine. And nowadays, when I was in Hajj back in 2006 or 7, I was with a group, some brothers from LA, won't mention the name of Abdurrahman's best friend that was with us there. And there was some strange fatwa coming out. In Muzdalifah, in Arafah, you cannot combine. Why? Because you can only combine if there is a sultan that has assigned an imam and it's praying in the masjid. And in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no masjid. And what sultan and what? I mean, this combining is mentioned. Even the Sahaba, they used to go when they used to be there and they made their own jama'ah, they combined. So I don't know, these additional shurut, I don't know where they come from. But according to all of the four major madahib, and including other madahib that don't exist anymore, you can combine in Muzdalifah and Arafah. طيب وإن جمع في وقت الأولى. And if you are going to combine in the earlier time, okay, what's the earlier time? If you're traveling, for example, the time of Dhuhr, and the time of Maghrib. Right? What's the later time? The time of Asr and the time of Isha. As you mentioned, Jum'ah and Fajr are not combined. Then there is the shart, which is أولا النية الجمعة in the أحرامها, the intention to combine when starting the Salah, Takbirat Ihram. And no tafarruq, there is no great gap بينهما إلا بقدر الإقامة والوضوء الخفيف. طيب, so 2 conditions for you that must be there if you're going to combine in the earlier time. First, you make your niyyah to combine before you start the salah, and this is an early time, so before the second time comes, and that you do not separate between the 2 salawat except a short separation that would be enough for an iqamah or for somebody to quickly renew their wudu. So let me explain the mas'ala. You cannot be like, I'm just going to pray dhuhr and then during the salah be like, I'm going to combine asr with it. No. Your niyyah has to be there to combine between the 2 salawat before you start the first. So, if you want to combine between dhuhr and asr because of travel, you're going to make 2, you're traveling. Before you begin the 2 for dhuhr, you make your niyyah that I'm planning on combining. And you start your salah. And then when you finish dhuhr, you don't go, alright, I'm just going to wait a couple hours before praying asr now. No. Then you have to pray asr together. But you can give enough of a time that would just be to give the iqamah, or if somebody had to renew their wudu with a quick wudu. Why? Because there's adillah for that. That you give 2 iqamas, 1 adhan in that situation. So that means you can give that amount of time. But to leave a long gap with praying in the prayer, combine in the first prayer is not permissible. So the 2 shurut, you got those? Having the intention before starting the first of the 2 salawat, before the takbirat al-ihram, and not separating between them a long separation. Only a separation that will be long enough to make your adhkar, or to give the iqamah, or to refresh the wudu. Light. Tayyib. And if you give a long gap, then this invalidates. This will invalidate that combining, in sense, invalidates the salah. Tayyib. The third condition is that the udhr that would allow you to combine was there during the beginning of the first salah, until the taslim. Tayyib. What does that mean? Tayyib. So, let's say you are combining due to rain, and you begin the salah and the rain stops before you have started the second salah. So how would we do that? Let's say in the masjid, it's raining. You're going to combine dhuhr and asr. Can you? That's a trick question. I don't know how you guys are going, yes, no you can't. We just went over that. Gotta make sure you guys are paying attention. So which salawat can you combine due to rain? Maghrib, Isha. So you come for Maghrib, it's raining. And you begin Maghrib. Now at the beginning of it, this is in the early time, right? Because Maghrib and Isha, Maghrib is the first. And you have the niyyah to combine between Maghrib and Isha. You begin Maghrib, it's still raining, but in the first rak'ah it stops raining. Now if you didn't know, that's different. If you're leading and you didn't know, that's different. But if you did know, now the udhr, the reason you were going to combine with Isha is gone. Before a tasneem, can you combine? No, because the reason you weren't going to come back for Isha is gone. So here, you will not combine them. Right? But if you began Maghrib, and it's raining, and until you made tasneem, it's still raining, Now you begin Isha. Now if it stops raining, it doesn't matter. Because you combine a valid combination. Clear? Or not clear? If you're not clear, I'll explain it. Don't just nod your head and then be like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Alright?
So if
Three.
it stops before Isha?
If it stops before Isha, meaning before the taslim of Maghrib, really. Right? Because once the taslim of Maghrib is done, then you begin Isha. Right? So before the taslim of Maghrib, if it stops, so before you begin Isha now, you realize that there is no rain, khalas, then there is no combine. But once you made taslim for Maghrib, you get up for Isha, and it's still raining, khalas, you're good.
So if it's not raining and it's like on and off, and then right after you make taslim for Maghrib, and then it starts pouring.
If it starts pouring, the hal is there again, and you haven't left the masjid, you can combine. Clear? Clear?
Sheikh, if you have no niyyah and you're praying Maghrib, stop raining.
If you did, good question. If you did not have the niyyah to combine, you're praying Maghrib and it starts raining, you cannot combine. Because one of the shurut was to have the niyyah before the takbirat al-ihram of the first salah. طيب. Now, in Jam'a, fi waqt al-thaniya, if you're going to combine in the second time, meaning with Dhuhr Asr in the time of Asr, if it's something that allows that, and Maghrib Isha in the time of Isha, in the second time, now you have two conditions only. Shartan, two conditions. اشترط النية الجمعة في وقت الأولى. What is the first condition? That you had to have had the niyyah to combine in the time of the first of them. Understand? Let's say, I will explain. Dhuhr Asr, you want to combine for traveling. In the time of Dhuhr, now in this condition, when are we combining? In the time of Asr, right? In the second time. In the time of Dhuhr, you had to have made the niyyah to combine with Asr. You cannot just be like, oh yeah, Asr's in, so khalas, I'm going to combine. No, that's the qada. You're just praying late at that moment, right? Meaning you had to have made the niyyah in the first time that you're going to combine with Asr. You didn't just delay it till it got late. Okay? For example, if somebody is sick, may Allah protect us. And because of their sickness, they decide they're going to combine Dhuhr and Asr. They had to make that niyyah in the time of Dhuhr. Or if it's raining, and they decide that we're going to combine in the time of Isha. Due to rain, in the masjid we make an announcement, we send it out, look, we're not going to pray Maghrib, we're going to pray it with Isha. Which is unusual, but could be done. Then the niyyah has to be made in the time of Maghrib. Not that, okay, you just become lazy and now Isha is already in, you're like, oh yeah, I guess I'll combine it. And that is true for Mushaqqa as well. And if you have some pressing hardship, and this is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, which not in this dars yet, but we can discuss, where even due to something like, let's say you're a baker and you put your buns and they're going to burn if you don't take them out, and now you realize that you're going to have to combine salawat due to something that's a very pressing need, then you have to make the niyyah to combine in the early salah's time to be able to combine in the later salah. The next shart is that the udhr is there fi dukhul al-waqt al-thaniya. Meaning the reason you were going to combine is still present when the second salah comes in. Tayyib. Example. In the time of Maghrib, you decide, I'm going to combine Maghrib and Isha in the masjid due to rain. And it's raining. But you haven't started because you're going to pray Maghrib in the time of Isha. Before Isha comes in, the rain stops. Now you have to pray Maghrib at its time. But if the time of Isha has come in and the rain was still going, now even if the rain stops, you can combine. You see the difference? I see confused looks. Alright. Tayyib. Let's say you want to travel. And because of traveling, you're going to combine Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Asr. So what is the first shart? that you make that intention in the time of Dhuhr. And the second shart, that you are a traveler when Asr comes in. Okay? If you make the niyyah, you're going to combine, but you enter San Diego, you are muqim now, and it's still time for Dhuhr. Now you cannot combine Dhuhr and Asr. Now you're muqim, you have to pray Dhuhr at this time. Even if that was your intention originally. See? In a different situation, if you made your niyyah to combine between Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Dhuhr, and you made your niyyah before you started Dhuhr, and you were still a traveler when you started Asr, you entered San Diego, now your combining is still accurate. See? Two different situations. So in ta'khir, in pointing it to Salah, waqt al-thaniya, if you're going to push it to the second time, meaning Asr and Isha, then two conditions. One, you had to make the niyyah while you were still in the time of the first. You didn't just delay it. And secondly, that udhr, that reasoning was still there when the second salah came in. Okay? So if you were going to combine between Maghrib and Isha, and you're a traveler, and Isha came in, you're still a traveler, you can still combine. But if you're muqim, then you cannot. Then, if you hadn't prayed it, you're just late. Clear? Not clear?
So
Go ahead.
for LA, or if I make niyyah to go to LA and say the masjid there, and if I come back to San Diego, where I have that
Well, you got to give me more detail than that. So you were going to go to LA,
yeah,
and you're a traveler, because LA from San Diego. You're a resident of San Diego?
yeah.
Okay. So San Diego and LA is more than the 47, 48 Hashemite miles. So now, when you leave the city of San Diego, the buildings of the city of San Diego, when you're now in Escondido or in Encinitas, now you're a traveler. You can shorten and combine. Now you're coming back from LA, right? Now give me your condition. Go ahead.
If I'm coming back when the condition is not valid, well, is it invalidated?
You're still a traveler until you enter the city of San Diego. So if before entering the city of San Diego, let's say you're coming back at Dhuhr time, you decide, I'm going to combine between Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Dhuhr. Okay? That's fine. As long as one, you made your niyyah before starting Dhuhr. Second, you're still a traveler by the time you made taslim of Dhuhr. When you started Asr, you were still a traveler. Right? You good with that? Alright. So, under those conditions, now you still have that ability to combine. The third, one more, which was that between Dhuhr and Asr, you didn't leave a long gap. So those three for that. Let me just finish with them just a second. Now the other situation is you want to pray Dhuhr, Asr in the time of Asr. Now you're still in LA, you make the niyyah in the time of Dhuhr, that I want to combine. Okay? That's the first step. Second, you prayed Dhuhr, or the time of Asr came in, and you were still a traveler. Now you will pray Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Asr, no problem. But if you return to San Diego before Asr came in, now you cannot combine. And if you didn't pray Dhuhr, you were just late, which is wrong.
It kind of relates to it. So, even though San Diego's point A, point B is LA, and he hadn't finished his trip, isn't it that when you reach the destination, that are you still considered a traveler?
So if you begin from San Diego, point A, you're going to LA, point B. When you reach LA, if you plan on staying in LA more than 4 days, now you're muqim. If you're going to be in LA less than that, meaning less than 20 salawat, if you're not going to make a 21st salah there, then when you're in LA, you're still a traveler. And with details for that, we're in the last class, inshallah.
The other one, in your niyyah, if you don't put it in an asr time, let's say that in your time, and you reach asr, that's a delay.
Yeah. If you're going to combine in the later time, you had to have made your niyyah in the first time.
If you didn't, you can't decide that at asr time.
I mean, if you didn't and you didn't pray, now you still have to pray them together, but this is sinful, and you prayed out of its time. inshallah. Fadl Shaykh.
Assume that
Yeah,
the
should we-
same rain today,
Yeah.
right now, it's raining outside very heavy rain. And we know that we pray Maghrib here
Hmm.
and we are not going out. And we are going to pray Isha here.
Yes.
So we do not have the reason
Yes.
of the travel that we may get winter or that and this. Because
Yes.
we pray Maghrib and we pray Isha here.
Hmm.
So we still can combine.
Good question. And after this, we'll end because the bab is finished. We're just in question answer here. So the question is that if somebody's in the masjid and it's raining heavy and it's Maghrib and they prayed Maghrib and their intention is they're going to stay in the masjid till Isha. So can they combine or not? Yes, because the condition is there. Even if it doesn't cause you that harm, because the condition is there, it is permissible for you to combine, or you can stay in the masjid making your adhkar and pray Isha at its time. But the masjid can combine because most people are going to go out of the masjid before Isha. So the masjid will combine Maghrib and Isha. If somebody is going to stay in the masjid, they have the choice. Yajuz, it is jaiz for them to combine. Because the shart, the rukhsa is there due to the heavy rain. Even if they're, like the muallif mentioned, even if it's a covered path, even there's no hardship, but because Rasulullah ﷺ did it, from the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, istidlalan, the Sahaba did it, we say it's jaiz. But if somebody decides, I'm going to be in the masjid anyway, I'm going to pray Isha at its time, nothing wrong with that. Unless there's going to be no jama'ah in the masjid for Isha, then it's better for them to join the jama'ah, the bigger number, inshallah. And we'll end with this, and we finish that fasl. Next will be Salatul Khawf, which is a salah that most people don't know how to pray. That'll be at the next dars, inshallah.